Hello to all my dear friends and loyal followers of Turkish Spotlight Secrets. I've missed you, and I hope you're feeling wonderful, because today's story is the kind that lingers in your heart long after the screen goes dark. Settle in, take a breath, and let this warm you from the inside out, because we're stepping into the glow of a statement that has stirred emotions across Turkey and beyond. We're talking about Erkan Meriç and the words he chose to describe Hazal Subaşı. A simple sentence that has traveled like a spark through the fandom, memory to memory, post to post, until it became a flame. If you've been following them since Adini Sincoy, you know exactly what I mean. And if you're new here, welcome to the place where feelings are translated into stories. Before we begin, a little love note from me to you. If you enjoy living these moments with me, don't forget to subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets so you never miss a heartbeat of what your favorite celebrities reveal without even saying a word. Let's begin with the line that keeps echoing everywhere, "She is the light of my life." Those were the words attributed to Erkan when speaking about Hazal, and yes, I can feel your reaction from here. Because it's not just a romantic phrase tossed in for effect. It's a declaration that leaves an imprint. It's concise, luminous, and carries the kind of weight that only truth can carry. Imagine a man known for his composure, measured presence, and quiet intensity, letting the world peek into the tender core he guards. Imagine him holding that metaphor like a lantern, and placing it gently in front of the person who has walked beside him through noise, pressure, and the fragile juggling act of being both adored and observed. To understand why those words hit so hard, we have to rewind to where it all began, on the set of Adini Sincoy, where two young stars stepped into a story and, somewhere between rehearsal and take, found a rhythm that felt bigger than dialogue. You remember the close-ups. You remember the kind of chemistry that doesn't shout but hums, steady and unmistakable. It wasn't only on the screen. The glances between scenes, the shared smiles, the unspoken team spirit, fans noticed. And once fans notice, there's no turning back. They started clipping moments, sharing little gestures, reading warmth into silence and certainty into subtlety. The admiration grew, and with it, the habit of looking for signs. Erkan has never been the type to splash his personal life everywhere. He chooses his words like they're the last light in a storm. That's why this sentence steals the breath. It suggests that in a world where fame can feel like flickering neon, Hazal is the steady sunrise. Light has so many meanings. It guides. It softens. It reveals. It warms. When he says she is the light of his life, it feels like he's telling us that she's been the steady glow through doubts and the first bright beam after a long night. Maybe she's the one who reminds him that even the hardest days have edges that soften with laughter. Maybe her optimism protects his heart from the harsher corners of the industry. Maybe her quiet bravery has taught him to be gentle with himself. The path to that level of intimacy isn't paved by one big moment but a mosaic of small ones. Two chairs pulled close during a break. A hand placed briefly on a sleeve after a tough scene. A nod that means I'm here, keep going. Fans don't always see those tiny threads being woven, but they feel them, even if they can't name them. And when the person who usually keeps his thoughts folded chooses metaphor as a window, we all lean closer. Light isn't loud. It's honest. It's the clarity you didn't realize you were craving. On social media, you could almost hear the collective gasp when the line started circulating. It was like someone hit a switch and the comments flooded in, memories, edits, fanfiction turning the phrase into poetry, montages that stitched their moments together with soft music and dreams of forever. For many, Erkan and Hazal's bond has come to symbolize an old-fashioned kind of belief. That two people can find something sincere in a place that often promotes performance. The public loves a fairy tale, yes, but what they crave even more is something that feels lived in, softly weathered, real. And that's the power of a simple sentence. It doesn't enforce a narrative, it invites you into a feeling. We don't hear Erkan say things like this every day. He's intentional. Reserved. The timing matters. His most delicate admissions arrive not in flashy moments but in the quiet afterglow of gratitude, when someone asks a question that reaches just deep enough to touch truth. that's why it resonates. It doesn't sound like a slogan, and it certainly doesn't feel like a stunt. It feels like the word he uses when the cameras dim and the laughter settles and the gratitude rises to the surface. And because it's him, because his reputation is polished with discipline and self-possession. The confession gleams with authenticity. He doesn't toss around praise. He assigns it like a ring of keys. When we hold that phrase up to the broader world of show business, the contrast sharpens. There are pairings that blare on red carpets and flicker off when the party ends. There are relationships curated for press cycles, carefully staged and quickly forgotten. But the story of Erkan and Hazal has never relied on spectacle. It has depended on consistency. The kind of consistency that makes you feel safe. The kind that says, even if I don't share every detail, you can trust what I do share. She is the light of my life, doesn't overshare, it focuses the lens. It asks us to look at what mattered most, which is not the rumors or the chatter, but the unwavering effect one person can have on another. And what an effect light can have. Think about what happens when a lamp is switched on in a dim room. Suddenly you can see the paths between the furniture that you were hesitant to navigate. Think about the way morning sun feels on an anxious chest. Light is both map and medicine. Perhaps Hazal's presence did that for him, quietly aired out the corners where pressure tends to gather, reminded him that even when the world wants 100 things from you, one person's steady gaze can return you to yourself. Artists are often tuned to high frequencies of feeling, and both of them, talented, sensitive, refined in their craft, understand how a metaphor can hold what a literal explanation cannot. It makes sense that he would reach for light. It's the clearest way to name the transformation without detailing every step. For Hazal, those words become a crown she didn't ask for but clearly earned. She's long been admired for her grace and skill, but this sentiment casts her not just as a star you watch, but as a soul who changes the temperature of a room. It elevates what people already sensed, that there is substance beneath the shine. Fans see her not only in roles and interviews but in the quiet loyalty that keeps a bond alive under the relentless weather of public life. No one escapes scrutiny in this world. Eyebrows rise, whispers form, and stories grow legs. But sincerity dismantles suspicion. And this is what that sentence does, it turns speculation into silence. It asks us to believe in what has always been there. Their gentleness with each other, their careful respect, their patience through the noise. Some have wondered whether statements like this are a shield or a flag. Is it protection from the invasive flashing of cameras, or a brave declaration intended to steady the ground beneath them? Maybe it's both. But listen closely to the cadence. The line doesn't sound defensive. It sounds grateful. It tastes like relief and acknowledgement, like someone naming the anchor that kept them from drifting too far when the currents were fierce. In that way, it's also a gift to the audience. It says, look, there is still something soft and true beating inside this glittering machine. And doesn't that soothe you? Doesn't it remind you that the most important parts of life are never the loudest? When I replay their journey in my mind. The first table reads, the long days under bright set lights, the fatigue that only someone beside you can truly understand. I imagine how countless tiny acts become a language only two people speak. A thermos of tea on a cold morning. A quick joke that dissolves tension before a critical scene. A quiet check-in after a grueling interview. The world may see the edited montage, but love is compiled in raw footage. So when Erkan, who rarely underlines his feelings, uses a single brilliant stroke, it not only validates what fans feel, it honors the invisible work that keeps two hearts synchronized in a loud, impatient world. The reaction, unsurprisingly, was a tapestry of joy. You could see it in every comment, every edit, every breathless caption. Their supporters celebrated as if they'd been given permission to believe all over again. But here's what makes this moment even more powerful. It doesn't demand a fantasy. It acknowledges courage, steadiness, grace under pressure. It makes room for a love that doesn't need spotlights to survive but shines even brighter when they dim. It shows us that being someone's light is not about fixing another person, but about being present enough to help them see the path they already carry within themselves. It's tempting to compare them to other pairs, to measure their story against the endless parade of headlines. Yet something about Erkan and Hazal resists comparison. They feel particular, like the feeling of a favorite song you can't explain to someone who hasn't heard it with you at the exact right moment. That's why this line has staying power. It doesn't try to win an argument. It doesn't add volume. It adds clarity. It says, here is where the compass points when the maps blur. It says, here is the warmth that returns me to myself. It says, here is home, and her name is Hazal Subaşı. And now, dear friends of Turkish Spotlight Secrets, what does this mean for us, the ones who cheer from the other side of the glass? It means we get to witness something worth rooting for, not because it's perfect or parceled into glossy squares, but because it remembers what matters. It whispers to us that some lights don't blind or boast, they guide. It reminds anyone who has ever stumbled that you can find someone who helps you see the edges again. If you've ever needed a reason to believe in tender things, perhaps this is your sign. We could end here, but I want to linger a little longer in that glow. Because beyond the headline, beyond the shareable quote, there is a call to lead with softness. There is a suggestion that dignity and love can coexist with ambition and pressure. There is proof that you can be talented enough to command a room and humble enough to praise the one who quietly steadied your heartbeat. And when an actor like Erkan chooses a metaphor so rich and simple, he's doing more than confessing a feeling, he's teaching us a language of devotion that doesn't need spectacle to be believed. So, when you think of them in the days ahead, of Erkan Meriç and Hazal Subaşı, remember the way a single sentence can contain a journey. Remember the first sparks on a set that became a sanctuary. Remember the small, steady gestures that stitched a net beneath the high wire of public life. And most of all, remember what light does. It makes the world visible. It warms cold hands. It points us forward. Perhaps that is the most beautiful part of all, that in choosing this image, he celebrated not just love, but the way love changes us, clarifies us, sends us back into the day with gentler eyes. Thank you for spending this time in the glow with me. If this story touched you, if it stirred the soft spaces you keep safe, let that feeling be your companion today. Share it with someone who needs reminding that quiet goodness still wins. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets so we can keep meeting in this light, where words mean more, where moments linger, and where two names, said together, feel like a promise, Erkan Meriç and Hazal Subaşı. Until next time, my dear friends, keep your heart open to the gentlest brightness, and let it lead you home.